One of many ways you can actually simplify details is actually the rule of thumb of toning first and then adding details later. Let me explain. We're actually going to hop into Procreate just because it's easier to record here, and I'm going to be using the Procreate pencil. First, let's actually talk about tone. Let's start off by making a quick value scale of the Procreate pencil, where we're going to go from the darkest on one end, and we're going to call this A, and then we're going to go to the lightest B. Just a quick value scale from the darkest dark to the lightest light. The thing with details is they are hidden and disappear at these extremities, A and B. So we have A, this is the darkest dark, and B, which is the lightest light. This can be observed pretty easily by either shining an extremely bright light at the texture object or looking at the object under low light or total darkness. Details normally lie in this middle section here. You can say details basically lie in between these two ranges. Details are normally visible in the middle values of light and dark, more so the darker value end because of the texture part of the object creating cast shadows from the light. With this in mind, a quick way to actually simplify the details is tone then detail, where most of the extra small details should be around your focal area and places of mid-range value. So let's say we have this sphere here. Take a sphere, and let's say we want to add like some little details of these little bumps, right? But the first thing we'll have to understand is where exactly the light comes from. So let's say the light actually comes from where I drew this arrow. So let's go ahead and tone this sphere and we'll add the details right on top of that. And now we have a base sphere, right? And it's shaded and we have a light source that's coming somewhere like this. It's actually not pointed that way, but it's somewhere like that. So let's say we wanted to add these small little bumps onto this actual sphere. Well, obviously, the silhouette will change because we know it's bumpy. So that's one way in which you can simplify it. But my main idea was to actually simplify the details along the surface. So we're going to just place these bumps here, here, and we're just going to add them on so we can further communicate that this is a bumpy-ish sphere or a sphere that has some bumps that has some little rocky surface, right? As you can see, I really didn't add too many details. We can get rid of the shade. And if we see here, I really didn't add too many of these bumps. If I wanted to try to texture this entire sphere with the bumps alone, I would have to add a lot more bumps throughout the entire sphere while also paying attention to where my light source is coming from. And doing that, it's a lot easier for me to make the mistake um, of ruining the actual shape of my form. Because since I'm adding all of these little small extra details, there's more opportunity for me to mess up. Or time wise, it's going to take a lot longer for me to actually make this a believable form just with these dots alone or these bumps alone. Now let's make this a bit more of a practical example and let's look at a reference. And we actually see this a lot. So right here, I have a reference of Leonardo da Vinci's his self-portrait. The emphasis here is around the hair. Here you can see there's a lot of these little strands of hair. And my goal is to try to recreate this while also faking the details with tone. So let's draw this off to the side. The obvious abstraction here that I went with was a typical box that contains his face and then the side of his head with a semisphere on top. So we want to make a small abstraction of what I'm trying to accomplish here. It's going to look something like this. And the tone is going to be added off to the side here. And this is the base abstraction I have in my head here. Actually gonna move the side plane of his head forward a bit. So even with the eyes, I could actually tone this out. So I can see the darkest part of the eyes. There's like a lot of shade there. Before I actually go into those wee little details, I could first tone it out just to get the initial shape, and then we can go in with the details later. But right now we're just gonna tone it first. We got the basic construction down, so we're just gonna start adding the tones in. And now since we know the light of this reference actually hits, the light is coming from the right side. So since we know that, we're just gonna go ahead and add the tone where the box was. So since I knew he built this out of a box most likely, just gonna hatch in the side of his head like we were actually coloring, or not coloring, shading this particular box here. So I'm just gonna add in just the first layer of tone, and then we could start adding those small details later. Start of the So notice where I'm adding the minute details. It's in those focal areas, the areas that we're going to look at first, but I'm going to hide the rest of the details within the tone as much as I possibly can, because what I don't want to do is try to go really, I really don't want to go so deep in the weeds where I'm just making individual marks, because there's more opportunities for me to mess up. Make base marks just to get the overall shape and idea portrayed first. He has a nice luscious beard too. Love it. Places I normally add a lot of those small details. It's areas where it's not too much shade or the silhouette. I'm trying to get this that V shape he has going on. Not really a V shape, but um, just the overall shape of his beard, just slowly but surely. But I don't want to add all of these individual little marks and hairs to try to get all of those necessary details, because I'm going to use tone to actually fake that. Right now, I'm just carving out the overall structure of that beard to try to communicate that idea. And now this is another tone shape, because the goal of this is not to try to recreate his this line by line. If I was doing a complete master study, I would try, but right now we're just focusing on simplifying those details. And the way I'm applying tone is just with basic hatching marks. You can apply tone in whichever way you see fit. Erase all of the extra little accidental marks that I made with my hand. So now I think I'm at a solid point in this drawing where we have enough tone down. Now we could really start bringing this drawing to life by adding those smaller details. I'm gonna be flipping between adding the smaller details while also still focusing and applying more tone. Wherever I can put tone, I'm gonna put tone over the details. Around this cheekbone area, there's a lot of these S curves that actually create the shape of his overall beard. Those are the parts of the details that I actually want to add and define less with the tone. It's a nice S curve, then it bends inwards, then outwards. Just like that. We're just gonna repeat that same S curve on this end, bends inward here, and comes outward. And as you can see, it's already starting to come out as we add these smaller details. It's mainly because of the tone already set, the tone of the drawing, no pun intended. So we have a C curve like this, and then we have another C curve that bends inwards. So we have an outward C curve, and then we have an inward C curve. The side of his face where the light is hitting, notice how in the extreme light, you can see there's minimum details. The same way where I put on the sphere here, where I put minimum details on the sphere where the light is directly hitting, you can see the same thing here with the Leonardo sketch. So I'm just going to start adding a bit more hard edges just to define the main areas. This was a super oversimplification and quick study of the Leonardo da Vinci sketch using tone and simplifying the details with tone, where we're not really focused on adding those individual marks. We're focusing on laying down the tone first and then add those individual marks. So I hope this helped you guys. Be sure to like the video if you did, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Deuces.